tell me. Okay. All right, I'll call to order the meeting of the Economic Development Committee. We're here today to discuss and consider a potential fee reduction in tax abatement, and I'll turn this over to our Director of Economic Development, Tricia Newcomer.
Thank you. As the mayor stated, we are here today to discuss and review a potential fee and tax abatement. The request comes from Laborio Seaford LLC. They own tax map and parcel 331-500-11 and 1101, also known as Melanie's Ridge. To acclimate you as to where Melanie's Ridge is located, you'll see the large yellow block around it, which is just to the west of Trinity Logistics, south of the Mears campus, located along Bridgeville Highway, and have received plan approval for 280 apartments at that location. And they have actually started some of the site work, I believe, but none of the actual building. They don't have their permit for that yet, but they do have plan approval to do so. And we have received requests with regard to relief of the fees, as well as a waiver on the taxes for a 5-year period with a 20% escalator going in on the new improvements. So I have Mr. Ramuno here, and I've got a couple slides for him. We'll ask him to join us at the mic, and he can kind of explain his project a little bit, and we'll go from there.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for your time. So we, Lou Ramuno, and this is a 280-unit site, 280 apartment units. We probably about 5 years ago built about, or well, 5 to 7, 8 years ago built about 400 units in Smyrna, which we own, and before that about 300 units in Middletown, which we still own and manage. We have the plans, and it calls for like around 1,250 square foot units, roughly 8 packs. We're actually modeled after our Christina site, which is in Smyrna.
Here, I have that.
Oh yeah, there it is, yeah. But with COVID, I mean, we've seen a lot of cost increases. We estimate that the lumber increase is going to be around $5,000 to $6,000 per unit. Probably around 10% is what it comes to roughly. It's around $5,000 to $6,000 for lumber. Pretty much everything's going up. Lumber's probably the most dramatic. You know, windows, we've had like 3 price increases in the last 6 months. If it wasn't for COVID, I probably would have brought someone else down here too, but we're trying to kind of space out a little bit some of our people and things like that, just, you know, so we don't all get sick. But I mean, so also we've had to keep subs out of the buildings. So what was like a 6-month build time now blows out to probably 9 months, something like that. So we lose 3 months of rent. We pay 3 more months of insurance. We have, you know, 3 more months of carry, things like that. And of course, with all the demand for housing, we actually anticipate that that'll actually continue, you know, even if there is a readily available vaccine in like the middle of 2021 or something like that. You know, the price increases we kind of figure will stick. And of course, we're competing with like the resort community, which a lot of the subs prefer work there because they know they can charge more. So we were asking for some relief from the fees. I saw that, and the taxes, I saw that I think the city had done that or was considering doing that for the project, the apartment project here on the corner. And that's, I think, my speech.
Okay.
And that's it.
I have a question. Why don't you just stay there? I have a question for these guys just right now. Other apartment complexes in Seaford, have we done any tax abatements, any kind of fee reductions for the other Stony Brook, those type of apartment complexes?
Not for Stony Brook. The only other one this body will recall is the piece of land at Bel Air that languished for 10 years undeveloped. That developer, it changed hands, that developer came to us. We did do a reduction for them of, it was tap fees, water and sewer tap fees, because we wanted, the incentive there was to get that product, that going, right? Because it had sat for a decade.
And that was last December.
Right.
But other than that, and Mr. Ramuno is correct, we did do a tax abatement and a fee reduction for Ricker Place. But no one else, no Stony Brook or anybody else, no
Right.
sir.
Okay, are there any questions from the committee?
Tricia, what was the architecture of the deal that we made with Seaford Development Association?
With regard to their taxes, it was a 5-year waiver on the improved value. It was only on the land, and then it increases the 20% each year thereafter. So it sort of ends up being 10 years, but it's a 5-year waiver completely of the new.
Were there any other permit or impact fee reductions with that?
Yeah, we did on the first 2 buildings, we did give them some consideration. The first building, they took advantage of some of the existing EDU counts that were on the land itself, because we give any developer credit for that. So because it was a prior developed site, we gave them some consideration for that, as is our policy.
And then with the current building, as you're aware, at our last council meeting, there was a waiver of fees with respect to utilizing that fee waiver for demolition of some of the properties that are located downtown.
Were there any utilities at the Lawrence building when it was there on that property?
Not ours. They were served by DP&L, and they were on well and septic.
Okay, so it was in city limits, but it wasn't served?
Yeah, and let me, that is true for Lawrence. There was also another house on this site that sat a little further back. They were, at that point, out of city limits.
But that is a good point. Speaking of utilities, there already is a concession waiver of electric equipment and labor that with regard to this project in the amount of $46,721.
Okay.
And that's on that phase 1.
Any other
I have a
questions?
question on the fee calculation.
Yep.
In the proposal, it says that you anticipate the cost of construction to be $35 million. Is that still correct?
Right, it is pretty close, yeah, yes.
And that's a
Probably about-
total,
It's probably about 100, I probably have direct costs of about 100 to 110,000 per apartment. That's for the building. And then my site costs, are probably around like 4 or 5 million. So you're at like 28 to 30 million in direct costs, probably about 4 million in site costs, maybe a little more. It kind of depends. And then, and some soft costs too.
right, and the soft costs are in that, calculated in that?
Well, maybe $1 million.
I'm sorry?
Probably about 30 million in building costs, 4 million in site costs, and maybe like $1 million roughly or more in soft costs.
Okay, okay. Because the fee calculation that was presented with this is for 38 million? Can you?
Correct. Yep, I can elaborate on that. So our building official uses the International Building Code. They have a building valuation table that's updated twice a year, February and August. And it's done on the square footage, not necessarily on what a developer would say that their investment's going to be. It sort of levels the playing field because you could say you're spending 35 million. Charles could say he's spending 25 million on the same project. This is actually done on the square footage of the plans that they submit. So that's how that's calculated.
Yeah.
Does that?
Is that something new?
No.
We've been doing it for over a decade.
Okay. Because I know when we apply for a building permit, we apply with sticks and bricks cost.
Yes.
Yep.
So you
We
don't
take
use that, or?
We do not. We do on some remodel projects, we do use construction value that's reported, but when you're building a new house, new building, we use the building code valuation tables.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. My other question is the rent. How much are these units going to rent for roughly?
Probably similar to what we rent for in Smyrna. I don't know exact numbers. I would, like, the 1 bedrooms, probably $1,000 per month. 2 bedrooms, probably around $1,200 to $1,250, and I think 3 bedrooms, maybe $100 more.
Oh, are there 3-bedroom units as
Well,
well?
we probably won't be a lot of 3-bedroom. In fact, there might not even be any 3-bedroom units because we're planning on building 3 bedrooms maybe somewhere else nearby. So Probably will be mostly 1 and 2s, yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Any other questions?
I think one comment that I would offer is the city seems to be working very diligently to promote homeownership within the city. I have some concern about any kind of a fee waiver for permit fees, tap fees, that kind of thing. It just seems to conflict with incentivizing home ownership. It's
Well, and
just a comment.
Just for clarification, too, the incentives that were offered to River Place were done prior to that being built on a land that had sat vacant and was a brownfield, and there was a lot of complications, and we were trying to motivate someone to build on that property. So
Right.
in the sense, this is a little different. That's why I was trying to ask what we had done for other developments in other areas that's kind of specific to that waterfront and the challenges that it brought. But you're right, we're still trying to encourage homeownership. But this project's been on our books for a long time, correct?
This one, not really. This is a relatively new project. You started it maybe 3 or 4 years ago? Yeah, we annexed it, I don't know, I can't remember, maybe 7 years ago,
Yeah.
8, 5, something like that. It's relatively new.
Another question, the timeline, I know was about a 3-year completion. Is that still
Yeah, 3 to 4, yes.
3 to 4? And would that include having the clubhouse and the pool and all of that totally completed? Okay.
And one thing to note with regard to the taxes, currently the one parcel is receiving the farmland tax exemption. That would go away, so even if this body recommended and council approved any type of tax waiver, it would not be against that farmland credit, it would be against the actual land valuation credit.
I mean, I'll just make a couple statements, I guess. Mr. Ramuno has stated that, one of the things that precipitated him coming here and requesting this was the increase in lumber and windows, and then the added carry costs. Obviously lumber's a commodity, just like liquid asphalt for paving. Liquid asphalt numbers are down, so one commodity can offset another commodity. I certainly would, if we're going to look at anything, I wouldn't look at the entire project. I would look at a portion, because being a commodity, that number may go up or down in the future. So I don't think we should go out past at least one phase at a time, would be my suggestion for the body to consider. Just because doing the whole thing now, we calculated the number.
Yeah, we did do some calculations, and we used your phasing plan based on your electric, assuming that that's going to be the case. So in that phase, there's 7 buildings, and I had the building code, our building official actually run the valuation on a single building so that we could get to a calculation. And so if we calculated just the water tap and sewer tap on 7 buildings, it would be a total of $99,400. That's just the water and sewer tap.
I mean, the entire project, though, the 280 units, I think the original ask was well over $1 million.
Yeah, if we did a 75, as stated in the request, if we did an entire 75% reduction on all estimated fees, that waiver would be $1,133,573.60. So that would be a pretty hefty fee waiver.
What is the cost to the city to add about 600 residents to the city for additional police? And I'm assuming the roads in here would be dedicated to the city to be maintained, or?
No, there's
No.
a small piece of road that is going to be public. The rest in the development are going to be private.
Okay.
Can't really answer you what the impact on the policing budget or anything like that is. It's highly dependent upon how well this is managed. We have some apartment complexes that are, don't require a lot of help from the city. There are other apartment complexes that do. So, but with growth, you're correct, there's going to be need for schools, firehouses, police, all those things. I will say Bridgeville Highway is a state-maintained road, so that doesn't fall to us. But again, there is, I think it's Wheatfield Drive maybe that, or Sassafras that goes through there. Just a small piece of land, roadway, sorry, that will be dedicated to public use. I can't answer your question directly, though.
Do you have something you believe we should consider?
I mean, Trish and I kicked around some options. Obviously, you know, doing the 75% fee reduction for the entire project is a heavy lift. I think
Right.
that's a lot. If you just look at phase one, do you have that phasing drawing?
Yep.
Just maybe for reference. So that's the phasing drawing, and Trish has one more
I
view
think I
that
have the
shows just
view,
phase
the
one.
zoom in phase,
Yeah.
yeah. Let me get there, sorry.
So what this project has, the way we're doing it, that's phase one. So as you come in up Bridgeville Highway, it's to the left of the drawing. And then what you're seeing there in the yellow is the electric circuit that's going to feed the apartment buildings. So that's, you know, 7 buildings in phase one. Mr. Ramuno has paid the electric fee to have that installed. We've ordered the materials. So that's going to be phase one. Do I assume correctly that you'll build this piece of it, and then once you reach a certain occupancy threshold, you'll build the next phase? Do you mind sharing what, is it 75% occupancy or?
Probably something like that, right, yeah.
Okay.
Typically, they lease stuff pretty quickly in the past.
So something Trish and I looked at, you know, we looked at just that phase, is the beginning phases that we're dealing with right now and will be permitting. You know, if we just did water and sewer tap fees, Trish shared with you the number there.
It's the $99,400.
So round numbers, that's
And
$100,000.
that comes out of that. As you see, there's that $43,211.90. That's what the estimated fees would be per building. And so we back calculated just the water sewer tap fees on all 7 buildings.
And that wouldn't get Mr. Ramuno to his $5,000 to $6,000 increase per unit, but that certainly would help a little bit. So that's a fee reduction. And the only other thing I'll say, and the only reason why we looked at that is because the city has offered other developers in developments that fee waiver, first 20 in 20. So, and we extended it. We made it 40 this year. So that's why we looked at it, because the city has a program for that. And again, we can relook at this in future phases. Does that commodity price change if we only did this? As far as the tax abatement goes, you know, that's a very special and limited thing. I will say it's very difficult for our tax department to track, because it's a one-off thing for those developers. So we actually have a manual spreadsheet. So we hear about it, you know, if we do those. We can do it. It's not an issue doing it. It's just, you know, those are kind of difficult to track, and it is a long-term thing. So I guess staff's recommendation would be, if we're going to do anything, if this body considers anything, we would recommend you strongly consider just the water and sewer tap fees for this phase. But it's,
And how many phases are there?
I believe 4.
4.
Is that correct?
4 phases.
I mean, we have, Ms. Neal, we have broken phases down with developers if there's an issue for them. So he could come back to us.
Can you go through the numbers one more time? I mean, what would that
With regard,
water and
sure.
sewer
So
tap
if-
fee
if-
mean?
The water tap and the sewer tap on 7 buildings. So let me back up. Water and sewer tap on 1 building is $14,200.
Okay. All right.
So we're saying to do relief on all 7, it would be $99,400.
Okay, I'm with you, thank you. And again, just for this group's knowledge, these are market rate apartments, not government.
Is that correct, Mr.
subsidized.
Romano? Thank you.
So what we're looking for from this committee is, what do we take to
To city council.
the city council in the next meeting?
And the timeline for phase one would be starting construction when, with an expected completion date of when?
Well, we were gonna try to pull permits this month, depending on, what we see, at least on 2 buildings, maybe on more. At least get like 2 foundations in before winter. Depending on subs, it's tough to say to some extent because, there's so much demand, and the subs can kind of pick and choose a little bit more than they could. So the affordable stuff kind of we kind of have to take a back seat a little bit, because they can get paid more if they go build for Shell at the beach, you know what I mean? And they know that, like up north. But, in the past, we were delivering, when we did Smyrna, we were able to deliver about 50 to 70 units a year. Again, with COVID too, though, everything spreads out because we're not supposed to have the same trades in there. So like what was a 6-month build cycle is now like a 9-month build cycle, so things lengthen in time. But
So considering if
probably a year, year
COVID
and a half.
stayed
Probably a year, year and a half. Yeah.
to complete phase one, or
Right,
just 2
phase one.
buildings?
No, all the buildings. So we would typically, like in the past, we would start a building in 1 month, like two in 1 month, and then we'd start another 1 or 2 months later, and another 1 or 2 months after that, something like that.
So
Usually
we're
go
saying
like
in a
2 at
COVID
time.
environment, you're looking at a year to a year and a half to complete phase one?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And also the first 2, you never really know what you're gonna get. We go a little slow in the beginning because, you don't know what you're how much demand there really is until you build them. Also, you get feedback too. Sometimes you think of changes, though there's not much to change. But.
Do some quick math to see what the tax abatement would be on the 56 units?
You've already done that, haven't you?
On 56,
You did the whole thing.
we did 7 buildings, 10 buildings.
And while she's calculating, the big thing is, we based a tax rate on the $35 million investment. That's not necessarily what the assessment's gonna turn out to be. So this is just a number of magnitude that she's gonna give you. It doesn't necessarily mean what taxation will be.
You just want that 99,000 broken down per unit, right? Is that because there's 56 units in the 7 buildings.
No, I was talking
How do you want?
more about, it would be, I guess it would be the 119,000 divided by, would you say it was 280 units?
280.
Yeah. Whatever the annual fee would be, for say like 850.
With regard to the taxes?
Yeah,
Okay.
850 times 56, I guess.
Well, actually, that 850, it will then become that 9,900, because once they lose that tax exemption, their annual tax rate on that property then becomes $9,933.44. So that's where,
It's a little complicated, but
Well, I'm just, trying to figure out what the impact of the taxes on phase one would be.
okay. And tax rate's 31 cents per 100?
34.
34.
34, okay. Okay, so there are 35 buildings total, correct? And if it's a $35 million investment, that's $1 million a building. So $1 million building is $3,400 taxes, okay? And we're saying times 7. So that's $23,800 annually of taxes we would not do, we would forego.
But they would still be responsible for the land taxes, which is
Correct.
$13,364.34.
So that's a net of 21.
I'm sorry, what was your number?
$13,364.34.
$10,436, which, that's a magnitude of potentially the incentive we would give him, if I'm following what you're saying correctly.
Well, I'm trying to understand, you know, if we're gonna break it down by phases, I mean, it's a big lump to say, hey, we're gonna give you whatever it is, you know, the ask or the total, you know, I'm just trying to figure out how to parse it out because he's only doing one phase at a time.
Right.
And if you think about it, it's not gonna matter after phase one, because he's not gonna have anything there to tax additionally till he gets to phase two, because he's not gonna have an improvement. So if we were to do it and evaluate it phase by phase, it's really no harm, no foul to him per se. The one thing that I'll say is, and Trish talked about the farmland tax exemption. So phase one, a piece of this land is gonna come out of farmland tax exemption. She's 100% correct.
Once he pulls his permit.
Once he pulls his permit. He may, and we'd have to, of course, Tracy is our expert in tax assessment, but if he farms the balance of the land, we may be able to keep that residual piece in farmland exemption. Is that correct, Tracy?
It would have to be greater than 5 acres, and he would have to subdivide
Yeah,
another lot.
because it's not,
So there's a path for him to do that. He may choose not to do that. Subdividing the land takes time and it could cost him for financing. I
sure.
can't get into those details. But, you know, short of that, the entire piece of land would come out and then be assessed under its multifamily zoning, which would be an increase to him and us right off. Because right now, his tax rate is very low.
yeah, $850
Yeah.
a year, just on that one piece.
It's
Now,
obviously going to go way up.
yeah.
It might make more sense to do the water and sewer tap fees that aligns with what we've done previously, and that would be certainly more manageable and something that he can calculate easily and know the savings to him, and we as a city can know the impact to us.
And that $99,000 is just the water and sewer tap fees of phase one, not the entire project, just for clarity.
Right. The committee's thoughts.
How much of the utilities are already constructed?
I've got the underground utilities in for all of phase one. There's approximately $2 to $2.5 million, including the road work.
This was, we go back to the overall drawing, and I'll, maybe, not to sympathize with the developer, but this was kind of a unique property to develop. The sewer is at the left-hand side of the page. It's on the utility building property. So he had to extend out for that back piece. So what he did was he brought sewer through at that intermediate roadway for the front piece.
I haven't actually done that yet.
You haven't done that yet?
No, I
Is
took
that-
it through Airfield.
Okay.
too.
So that was the difficult piece here. The sewer was so far away, and then his entrance was on the other
Bridgeville
side.
Highway was like $800,000. That was a big cost.
So this was a difficult piece of land to engineer, design, and then it front-loaded a lot of costs.
That entrance boulevard is expensive too.
Yeah, I would say your off-site road improvements were $1 million?
Well, Bridgeville Highway alone was like 800,000,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Again, I'm sympathizing with him that this was an expensive piece of land to develop. I mean, he's developing it intensely, so it needed quite a bit of utilities. But it was challenging at best to try to work out a plan. So he did have a lot of front-loaded costs. He does have a lot of front-loaded costs.
And the reality also is this is a capital intensive, endeavor. So if interest rates go up, and they're almost bound to go up, and I can't lock rates really until I'm at the 280th unit almost. So I have that much more risk. You know what I mean? I I mean, I'll be on a floating rate until I get to that point, so. I'll be on a construction type facility until I get there.
So, just remind me again what our existing program is?
So we, for
20 and 20
yeah, so
program.
for developments that, if the developer installs all the water and sewer infrastructure, which this one did, in existing developments that have a water and sewer tap, if you are one of the first 20 permits issued, we will give you water and sewer tap fee waivers. The 21st one pays full boat, full freight. That's just the way we did it. This year, because construction was so robust, the building official brought back a proposal to extend that. So council agreed to add 20 more, and we have now run out of that as well. So we're over 40 this year, which is good.
Yep.
But it's only for existing single-family residential developments, not multifamily. So
Right.
he never had that option to extend. That option was never extended to this zoning or this use. We did do something like that for Bel Air because we wanted to incentivize them to revive something that had lingered for 10 years, undeveloped.
So I need to see the math. What was your, I don't think I have your other worksheet.
With regard to just the,
Yes.
You have the fee and rate schedule, right? I mean, you can certainly see that, but I think what he wants to do,
Yeah.
you
here's
have,
this, he's got
Yeah.
the multi-build, here's the estimate for, just a single building.
so the water tap fee is $725 per unit.
You see what page we're on, Joan?
No, which one?
We're on this
Sorry.
Well,
document here.
it's not gonna be on that one, because that's for the entire
The
project.
fee and rate, not the fee and
Gotcha.
rate schedule, sorry, the fee
But it's not
calculation.
it's not on this one, this is for
It's not on
the
this
entire
partic-
building.
it's not on this one.
It's a single, you're on
But we
the
can do the
single-
math on,
I know, just what they have in their packet is not the same
Okay.
information as what
No.
I'm
okay.
gotcha.
So the sewer tap fee is $1,050 per unit. So if you add those two together, multiply it times, got it right here.
The
56.
5,800 is
50?
the water tap, right? Is that the one you're doing water and sewer tap only, correct?
Yeah, that's the number you have
The
there
water-
for 8
the-
of them. Yeah,
Right. So water taps is 5,800, sewer taps 8,400.
yes.
Say
which
that
is-
one more time.
Water tap fees are $5,800. Sewer tap fees are $8,400, which is a total of $14,200
Per building.
per building, times 7 buildings, it's $99,400.
Does that make sense?
And again, that aligns with what we did on the other property in Bel Air that sat, okay?
Yes, sir.
So how should it read? Per unit or total?
The recommendation to council?
I mean, if you're gonna do it against phase 1, if you're gonna do it that way, I certainly think you can use the grand total of the 99. If your desire is to do it differently and do it per building, then I would use
it's
the
gonna add
other
up the
figure,
same.
but I think that could be a little sticky. And again,
I think if we're talking about 15 to 18 months per phase, that conditions will either improve or degrade,
certainly. Mhm.
so that we can make better decisions on behalf of the developer in the future as the project moves forward. So I'm inclined just to do the first phase.
Yep. And nothing would
to-
prevent the developer from coming back
No,
for phase two to
I
ask
know
that.
it's-
Yep,
I know it may seem
Yep.
repetitive, but I think that looking into the future, this year's been totally unpredictable.
correct.
And we're hoping that we'll return to some more stability, but who knows?
Right.
So, yeah, I think, if nobody else has any questions, when you're ready.
Mrs. Neal, do you have any questions or comments or
No.
suggestions?
Whatever the committee's motion is, we need to make a determination on both, whether, if we're not going to do anything with taxes, we just need to make sure that the motion includes to not, or however the committee phrases it. We need to
We're
make
gonna
a recommendation.
Make a recommendation, thank you.
Only for phase only, in the amount of $99,400.
Is everyone in
Can
agreement?
we add to that a time frame for construction to be completed in a 2-year time frame, maybe?
Can we add that to that, would you?
I mean, it would be up to.
You would just have to modify
Councilman
his
Henderson would have
recommendation.
to agree to modify his motion.
I'll tell you what, I will recall my motion and let you
Add to it.
Okay.
add to it.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I will make a motion to recommend to council consideration of waiving water and sewer tap fees only for Phase 1. The amount of that is estimated at $99,400 with construction completed in a 2-year period,
Okay,
2 years from the date of building permit.
okay, so we have a motion. Is everyone in agreement to that motion?
I second.
Okay, all right. So we will take that to our next city council meeting, which is on November 24th, okay? And
You gonna do a vote?
do we vote on a recommendation? Okay,
Yeah.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, okay, it's unanimous. Sorry, I moved ahead.
That's okay.
So that'll go to the next council meeting. Would we recommend that he be here for that meeting?
We have asked him, he
Okay.
has that in his schedule.
And
Yep.
we'll try to have that right at the beginning of the meeting, so you don't have to suffer through the whole meeting. So, thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Mr.
We
Moreno.
appreciate you being
Thank
here.
you. Safe travels back.
Thank you.
Okay. And with that, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, okay,